Hello. Before we begin, may I ask you a favor? After clicking the subscribe button, could you leave a comment indicating where you listen to this? They kept the event I'm about to describe hidden for years so that most people wouldn't hear about it. Believe me, once you hear what I have to say, you'll understand why. If you're ready, I'll begin. My name is Jonathan Reeves, and for 10 years, I have been afraid to tell myself the truth. I tell people I am a park ranger in Northern California. I say I patrol the Mendocino Wilderness area, prevent hikers from getting lost, manage wildlife, and prevent forest fires. All of this is technically true, but it's not the whole truth for me. The truth is that for years I've been protecting something the U.S. Army wanted to keep secret. Every morning when I put on this uniform, I feel guilty. I see myself as an accomplice in a cover-up that has been going on since 1987. I didn't know that when I took the job. I was 32, freshly divorced, and desperate for something that would take me far away from the wreckage of my old life in Sacramento. The posting seemed perfect, remote, quiet, decent pay for government work. The job listing mentioned specialized wilderness management and required a background check more intensive than anything I'd seen for a ranger position. But I figured it was just bureaucratic overkill. I should have known better. My first day, my supervisor, Bill Cortez, drove me out to the ranger station in his beat-up Ford. Bill was 58, weathered like old leather, with eyes that had seen things he'd learned to stop talking about. For the first hour, he went through the standard orientation, radio codes, emergency procedures, how to handle aggressive bears, what to do if we found injured hikers. Then, about 10 milli into the forest, he pulled off onto a fire road that didn't appear on any of my maps. "There are parts of this forest you don't go into," he said. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. "I'm going to show you the boundaries. You'll see the markers. They're not on any official map. And if anyone asks, you don't know what I'm talking about." The markers were just small metal posts, maybe 3 feet high, painted an odd grayish green that made them almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. They had numbers stamped on them, sequential, starting from 1 and going up. Bill drove me along the perimeter for almost 2 hours. We counted 47 markers forming a rough circle around maybe 8 square miles of dense forest. "What's in there?" I asked. Bill didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Nothing good. The Army closed this section in 1987. Told the public it was because of toxic contamination from old munitions testing. That's the official story, and you stick to it if anyone asks." And unofficially, he pulled out a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly as he lit it. Bill had quit smoking 5 years earlier. He told me that during our first meeting, but he needed one now. Unofficially, something happened out here, something that made the Army pull out in less than 48 hours. They didn't decontaminate. They didn't clean up. They just sealed it off, erased it from the maps, and told us to make sure nobody ever goes in there. What kind of something? Bill looked at me then, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. The kind of something that made 6 of my predecessors quit within their first year. The kind that made the 7th one eat his service weapon 3 months into the job. "You seem like a stable guy, Michael. You got through your divorce without falling apart. You can handle this posting, but you need to understand this job isn't about protecting hikers from bears. It's about keeping people away from that section and keeping whatever's in that section from coming out." I thought he was exaggerating, maybe trying to haze the new guy with spooky stories, but something in his voice made it clear he believed every word. That night, alone in my cabin at the ranger station, I went through the files Bill had given me. Standard stuff, mostly incident reports, wildlife surveys, maintenance logs. But at the bottom of the drawer was a locked file box. The key was taped underneath. Inside were documents that shouldn't have existed. The first was a memorandum dated March 15, 197, from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to the Department of the Interior. Most of it was redacted. Thick black lines covering entire paragraphs, but I could read enough. Immediate cessation of all civilian access. Perimeter established. Ongoing monitoring required. Personnel advised that disclosure of redacted constitutes violation of national security. There were incident reports too, but not the kind I was used to. These were handwritten, some of them barely legible. Dated from 1987 to the present. Different rangers, different handwriting, but similar themes. Heard voices on military frequencies during night patrol. Voices requesting extraction. No active military operations in area. Found boot prints leading into closed section. Adult male, size 11, leading in. No prints leading out. Camera trap at marker 23, triggered 47 times in one night. All images show same figure. Appears to be male military uniform, but image distortion makes identification impossible. Same figure in all 47 images, but wearing uniform styles from different decades. The last report was from 3 months ago, written by Bill himself. Third hiker this month reported seeing soldiers inside the closed section. Consistent descriptions, full combat gear, moving in formation, but not responding to calls. I followed up, found nothing but old equipment caches. Equipment is U.S. military issue, but dates range from a 197 to present day. No explanation for how current equipment ended up in supposedly sealed area. Recommend continued monitoring, but no official report. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. Don't report it officially. Just watch. I spent my first 2 weeks learning the patrol routes, familiarizing myself with the terrain, avoiding the closed section entirely. Bill had made it clear. We maintained the boundary markers. We turned back any hikers who wandered close, but we never went in. Never. The forest itself was beautiful in that Northern California way. Towering redwoods, thick undergrowth, streams cutting through ancient stone. During the day, it was peaceful, almost meditative. But something changed after dark. The sounds were wrong. I'd spent time in wilderness before. I knew how forest sounded at night. Insects, owls, the occasional rustle of deer or raccoons. But the sounds near the closed section were different. On my third night, I was doing a patrol along the southern boundary when I heard it. Footsteps. Not animal footsteps, human footsteps. Multiple people moving in rhythm like a military formation marching through the forest. I froze, hand on my radio. The sounds were coming from inside the closed section, maybe 50 yards past marker 31. I grabbed my flashlight and swept it across the tree line. Nothing. The footsteps continued for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped abruptly. In the silence that followed, I heard something else. A voice, distant but clear. Unit designation. It was scratchy, like it was coming through a radio, but there was no radio. The voice just existed in the air. I keyed my radio. "Bill, you there?" Static. Then his voice thick with sleep. "Yeah, what's up?" I'm at marker 31. I think I'm hearing radio chatter, but there's no source. A long pause. "Don't engage. Don't respond. Don't even acknowledge you heard it. Mark your position and head back to the station. Bill, now Michael, that's an order." I did what he said. But as I walked back to my truck, I could still hear it. Voices. Multiple voices now, all using military terminology I vaguely recognized from movies. They were requesting coordinates, calling for backup, reporting contact with something they called the displaced. When I got back to the station, Bill was waiting on the porch, smoking another cigarette he shouldn't have had. "You heard the loop," he said. "The what? It's what we call it, the loop. It's what we call it, the loop. It's been playing since 1987. Same voices, same requests, same reports. They're not real-time transmissions. They're echoes. Maybe recordings somehow embedded in the environment. We don't know. That's impossible." "Yeah." He took a long drag. "But you heard it anyway. Over the next few weeks, I heard the loop maybe a dozen times. Always near the closed section, always after dark. The voices became familiar. I could recognize individual soldiers by their vocal patterns. There was one they called Morrison, who always sounded calm, professional. Another called Vickers, who sounded young, scared. And there was someone they called the captain who gave orders in a clipped, urgent tone. They were always talking about the same things: establishing perimeter, requesting extraction, warning about contact with the displaced. I asked Bill what the displaced meant. He shook his head. Best guess. It's what they were dealing with when whatever happened happened. Some of the old reports mention it. Soldiers seeing people who shouldn't be there. People in old uniforms from wars that ended decades ago. People who seemed confused about when and where they were. You mean like time displacement? That's science fiction. I know what it sounds like, Bill said. But this whole situation sounds like science fiction. Doesn't make it less real. The first time I saw one, I was checking a camera trap near marker 19. It was early morning, maybe an hour after sunrise. The forest had that soft, golden light filtering through the canopy, and everything felt peaceful. I was downloading the SD card from the camera when I saw movement in my peripheral vision. A man stood about 30 yards away, just inside the closed section. He wore military fadings, the woodland camouflage pattern the Army used in the 80s. He had a rifle slung over his shoulder and was staring directly at me. I raised my hand in greeting. Hey, you're not supposed to be in there. This is a restricted area. He didn't respond, just kept staring. I took a step closer. Sir, I need you to come out of there. This area is closed to the public. Still no response. But now I could see details. His uniform was dirty, torn in places. His face was pale, almost gray. And his eyes were wrong. Too wide, too fixed. Like he was looking at something terrible I couldn't see. Sir, I'm going to need you to. He turned and walked deeper into the forest. Not quickly, not running. Just a steady, purposeful walk. Like he knew exactly where he was going. I stood there, frozen. Every instinct told me to follow, to make sure he was okay, to bring him out. But Bill's words echoed in my head. We never go in. Never. I marked the position, took photos of where I'd seen him, and radioed Bill. I saw someone, I said, inside the closed section. Military uniform, 8's era. He wouldn't respond to me. Description. I gave him the details. Another long pause. Morrison, Bill said quietly. You just saw Private First Class David Morrison. He's been reported at least 40 times over the past 30 years. Always in the same area. Always wearing the same uniform. Always walking deeper into the forest. That's impossible. The same person for 30 years. I know Bill. If he's lost in there, if he needs help, he's not lost. He's not anything. Not anymore. Whatever happened in 1987, it did something to those men. The ones who stayed. The ones who didn't make it out when the Army evacuated. They're not soldiers anymore. There's something else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Morrison's face, those wide, horrified eyes. I kept thinking about the loop, the voices requesting extraction that would never come. I started going through the locked files more carefully. There were photographs tucked in the bottom. Old Polaroids mostly, but some more recent digital prints. They showed the same things I'd been seeing. Soldiers in various uniforms, different eras, all inside the closed section. Some were alone, some were in groups. All had that same fixed, distant stare. One photo caught my attention. It was dated April 3rd, 1987, labeled Pre-Incident Patrol. It showed 6 men in fresh fatigues smiling for the camera. I recognized Morrison immediately. Younger, healthy, with normal eyes and a genuine smile. The others were labeled Vickers, Patterson, Chen, Rodriguez, and leading them all, Captain James Holloway. I flipped to the next photo. Same location, same men, but dated April 7th, 1987. Post-incident recovery attempt. The change was horrifying. All 6 men stood in the exact same positions, but they looked wrong. Their skin had that same grayish pallor I'd seen on Morrison. Their eyes were too wide. and their faces showed expressions of terror so profound it hurt to look at them. But they were standing at perfect attention, like they were still following orders, still maintaining formation, even though something had fundamentally broken them. At the bottom of the file was a report I almost missed. A single page, heavily redacted, dated April 10th, 1987. All personnel accounted for except 6. Remains located but redacted. Condition inconsistent with known biological processes. Redacted. Strong recommendation for permanent closure and continued monitoring. Redacted. Under no circumstances should civilian or military personnel enter affected zone. The last line wasn't redacted. We didn't understand what we were dealing with until it was too late. Whatever was in that forest, it's still there, and it's still taking people. I looked up from the report and realized it was dark outside. I'd been reading for hours, and from somewhere in the distance, carried on the night wind, I could hear the loop again. This is Captain Holloway. We have contact with the displaced, requesting immediate extraction. Repeat, immediate extraction. They're not what we thought. They're the transmission cut off, replaced by static. Then a different voice, Morrison's voice, but different from the other recordings. Clearer, closer. They're still here. We're all still here, and we're waiting. The radio on my desk crackled to life even though it wasn't turned on. Morrison's voice came through crystal clear. Come find us, Michael. Come help us. We've been waiting so long. I stared at the radio, my heart pounding because Morrison knew my name. And that's when I understood that whatever happened in 1987 wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat at my desk until dawn, staring at that radio, waiting for Morrison's voice to come through again. It never did. But the silence was somehow worse than the transmission because now I knew whatever was in that forest, it was aware, it was watching, and it knew who I was. When Bill arrived at the station the next morning, I showed him everything. The photos, the reports, the recording I'd managed to capture on my phone when Morrison's voice came through the dead radio. He listened to the playback once, his face going pale. 11 years, he said quietly. I've been doing this for 11 years, and they've never done that. Never used names, never interacted directly. He looked at me with something close to pity. Whatever you are, Michael, you're different. They're reacting to you. Why? What makes me different? Bill was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out a file I hadn't seen before. My file, my background check, my psych evaluation, my entire history laid out in bureaucratic detail. They didn't tell you everything about why you were selected. He said the posting required more than just a background check. They needed someone with specific characteristics. He pointed to a section in my psyche veil I'd never been shown. Subject demonstrates high tolerance for cognitive dissonance and paradigm-shifting information. Recovery from personal trauma suggests strong psychological resilience. Notably, subject reported experiences with unexplained phenomena during childhood that were dismissed but never fully resolved. Recommend for specialized assignment. I remembered those childhood experiences. The shadow figure I'd seen in my bedroom when I was 8. The voice I'd heard calling my name in an empty house when I was 12. Things I'd convinced myself were just nightmares or overactive imagination. They specifically look for people who've had encounters, Bill said. People whose minds are already slightly open to things that shouldn't exist. Because if you're going to guard something impossible, you need to be able to accept the impossible. That's insane. Yeah. He lit another cigarette. But here we are. The next few days I tried to maintain normal routines. Patrol the trails, check the markers, help the occasional lost hiker. But I couldn't stop thinking about Morrison and those other soldiers trapped in whatever hell existed inside the closed section. On my 4th night after the radio incident, I was doing a sunset patrol when I found something that changed everything. Marker 33 was down. Not damaged, not vandalized, completely gone. Just a hole in the ground where the post should have been, and fresh boot prints leading into the closed section. I should have called Bill, should have followed protocol. But those blueprints were recent, maybe hours old, and whoever made them was in danger. I convinced myself I was just going to follow them a short distance, just enough to make sure no civilian had wandered in. I'd be quick, careful, and I wouldn't go deep. That's what I told myself as I crossed the boundary for the first time. The temperature dropped the moment I stepped past where the marker should have been. Not gradually, instantly. It was a warm September evening, maybe 70 degrees, and suddenly I was exhaling visible breath in air that felt like October. The light changed too. Even though sunset was still an hour away outside, inside the closed section, everything had that dim twilight quality. Shadows stretched wrong, falling at angles that didn't match the sun's position. I followed the boot prints for maybe 200 Y. They were clear in the soft earth. Hiking boots, men's size 10 or 11, moving at a steady pace. Whoever made them was walking with purpose, not wandering confused. Then the prints stopped. Not faded away, not obscured by terrain, just stopped mid-stride. One moment there were clear impressions in the soil. The next moment, nothing. Like whoever was walking had simply ceased to exist. I stood there trying to make sense of it when I heard movement behind me. I spun around, hand dropping to the canister of bear spray in my belt. 3 men stood about 20 feet away, all in military fatigues, all watching me with those 2 wide, horrified eyes. I recognized Morrison on the left. In the middle was a Hispanic man who had to be Rodriguez from the photo. On the right, a young Asian man, Chen probably. All 3 from Captain Holloway's unit. All 3 supposedly dead since 1987. "You need to leave," Morrison said. His voice sounded almost normal, almost human, except for a slight echo like he was speaking in a cathedral. "You're not supposed to be here." "Not yet." I'm here to help," I managed. "If you're lost, if you need, we're not lost," Jen interrupted. "We know exactly where we are. We've always known." "That's the problem." Rodriguez took a step forward. "Do you understand what happened to us? Do you know what we found?" I shook my head. "We were just doing a routine patrol," Morrison said. "April 5th, 1987. Standard sweep of this section before it was closed. We were looking for a reported AWOL soldier who'd gone missing 3 days earlier. We found him." "Where?" "Everywhere," Chen said, and his voice cracked. "We found him everywhere. In every tree, in every shadow, in every moment that had ever existed in this forest. He was spread across time like something had pulled him apart at a subatomic level and scattered him through decades," Morrison continued, his voice hollow. "He tried to warn us, tried to tell us not to look too closely at the old equipment. We found military gear from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all of it. Just left here. Not lost, left. Deliberately placed at specific points, forming a pattern." "What kind of pattern?" "A cage," Rodriguez whispered. "The equipment was marking boundaries of a cage, and we were standing in the middle of it." A sound echoed through the forest. That same radio chatter I'd heard before, but louder now, coming from all directions at once. Dozens of voices, all calling for extraction, all reporting contact with the displaced. "Something was buried here," Morrison said. "We don't know what. Military won't say, probably doesn't even know. But in 1945, right after the war ended, they brought something to this forest. Something they'd recovered from somewhere, and they buried it deep, marked the location with equipment, and told everyone to stay away. But you didn't stay away." "We didn't know," Jen said, and now I could see tears running down his gray face. "Captain Holloway found the entrance. Just a metal hatch built into the rock face covered with 40 years of growth. We should have reported it, should have backed off and called for experts. But the captain, he was curious. We were all curious. Morrison's hands were shaking. We opened it. Inside was just a shaft going down into the earth, and at the bottom was a door. No markings, no warnings, just a door. Did you open it? All three of them looked at me with expressions of such profound regret that I felt it in my chest like a physical weight. The captain opened it, Rodriguez said. The rest of us were maybe 10 feet back. The moment that door opened, everything changed. The air felt thick. Time felt thick. Like reality itself had become dense, resistant to movement. And then we saw them, Morrison said. The displaced soldiers from every war America had ever fought. World War I doughboys, Civil War infantrymen, Vietnam tunnel rats, all of them standing in that room beyond the door. All of them with the same expression we have now. All of them trying to scream warnings. We couldn't understand. Jen's voice dropped to barely a whisper. They weren't dead. That's what we realized. They were never dead. They were just removed. The moment we opened that door, we became part of the collection. I don't understand, I said. Even though part of me did. Part of me understood exactly what they were telling me. Whatever's in that room, Morrison said, it collects soldiers. Every generation, every war, it takes a few, just enough that they can be explained as missing in action, casualties without bodies, and it keeps them preserved in a state between life and death, between moments, existing in all times and no time simultaneously. We're still down there, Rodriguez added. Part of us is still standing in front of that door, trying to step back, trying to run. But we're also here, also scattered through these woods, also existing in every moment since 1987, trying to warn people away. The radio chatter grew louder. Now I could make out specific words. This is Sergeant Miller, 104th Airborne, requesting extraction from unknown location. Private Kowalski, 3rd Infantry Division. I don't know where I am. I don't know when I am. Corporal Washington, USMC, if anyone can hear this, don't open the door. Don't look at them. Don't let them see you. Hundreds of voices, maybe thousands, all lost soldiers, all calling for help that would never come. The Army knows, Morrison said. They've always known. This whole area has been a collection site since at least World War I, maybe earlier. Every few years they send a patrol through. Every few years some of them don't come back, and the collection grows. Why? I asked. Why would they keep doing this? Why not just seal it permanently? All three of them looked at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. Because they're studying it, Jen said, trying to understand it, trying to figure out if they can weaponize it. Imagine being able to remove enemy soldiers from time itself. Not kill them, just erase them from the battle, store them away. It would be the perfect weapon. That's insane. That's military thinking, Rodriguez said bitterly. They've been trying to control it for almost 80 years, but they can't. All they can do is feed it occasionally and hope it stays dormant. Morrison took another step closer. That's why we're warning you. You're different, Michael. We can feel it. Whatever quality they selected you for, it makes you visible to what's down there. And if you can see it, it can see you. And if it sees you, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. How do I stop this? I asked. How do I keep it from taking anyone else? The three soldiers looked at each other, communicating in some way I couldn't perceive. You can't stop it, Morrison finally said. It's been here longer than America. Longer than any of us can comprehend. But you can do something we couldn't. You can warn people. You can document what's really happening here. You can make sure the truth doesn't die with the next patrol that goes missing. The equipment caches, Chen added, start mapping them. The pattern they form isn't just a cage. It's a message. Coordinates and dates encoded in the placement. Someone before us figured it out and tried to leave warnings. If you can decode the pattern, maybe you can understand what this thing really is. Rodriguez pointed deeper into the forest. Marker 47. That's the epicenter. The hatch we found is 50 yards southeast of it. Don't open it. Don't go down. But there are documents in a waterproof case just inside the entrance shaft, left by someone who understood more than we did. Get those documents, Michael. Get them and get out. And then what? Then you decide. Morrison said, you decide if you're going to be another ranger who keeps the secret, or if you're going to be the one who finally tells the world what's been buried in these woods. The light was fading. Or maybe time was breaking down. I could barely see the three soldiers anymore. They were becoming translucent, fading into the twilight. We're out of time, Jen said, his voice distant now. It knows you're here. It's starting to pay attention. You need to go now. Wait, I said. How do I find you again? You'll find us? Morrison's voice echoed. We're always here. We'll always be here. We'll always be here. But Michael, be careful. Every time you cross that boundary, every time you come into this section, you risk becoming like us. Displaced, scattered, collected. They were almost completely transparent now, just outlines against the darkening trees. One more thing. Rodriguez's voice came as if from a great distance. The soldier whose prints you followed, he's already gone. Taken within the first 100 yards. The print stopping wasn't him disappearing. It was reality, forgetting he ever existed. Then they were gone, and I was alone in a forest that felt like it was watching me with 1,000 invisible eyes. I ran. I ran back toward the boundary, back toward Marker 33's absent position, back toward normal reality where time flowed in one direction and soldiers stayed in their proper decades. I crossed the boundary and the temperature jumped back to normal. The light returned to proper sunset angles. But when I looked back at the closed section, I swear I could see shapes moving between the trees. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all wearing different uniforms from different eras, all watching me leave. When I got back to the station, Bill was waiting. He took one look at me and said, "You went in." I nodded. "Did you see them?" Morrison, Chen, and Rodriguez. They told me about the door, about the collection. Bill closed his eyes. "Then you know more than you should. More than is probably safe." "Bill, we have to do something. We can't just leave them. They're not there to be saved." He interrupted, his voice hard. "Whatever they are now, whatever they become, they're not the men who went missing. They're echoes, recordings, ghosts made of time itself. They knew things. They told me about equipment caches forming a pattern about documents near Marker 47. Bill's expression changed. "They told you about 47? You know about it?" "Every ranger knows about 47, he said quietly. "It's the one marker we are specifically told never to investigate, never to go near, and definitely never to look for what's nearby. Why? Because 3 rangers before you did exactly that. 2 never came back. The 3rd came back different, wrong. Like he'd seen something that rewired his brain. He's the one who ate his gun. Bill, if there are documents that explain, it doesn't matter what they explain." Bill's voice rose the first time I'd heard him truly angry. "Understanding won't help you. Knowing the truth won't save anyone. It'll just make you another person carrying a weight you can't put down. Is that what you want? To spend the rest of your life knowing things you could never tell anyone, seeing things you can't unsee?" I thought about Morrison's eyes, about the pain frozen in Chen's face, about Rodriguez's warning. "I'm already seeing them," I said. "I'm already knowing things. Might as well understand what I'm dealing with." Bill stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "You're going to go to Marker 47 no matter what I say, aren't I?" I nodded. "Then I'm coming with you," he said, "because if you're going to damn yourself with knowledge, you shouldn't have to do it alone." The next morning we left at dawn. Bill had maps, real maps. not the sanitized versions they gave to regular rangers. These show the equipment caches marked with dates and coordinates. I've been tracking them for years, Bill admitted as we drove, plotting them, looking for patterns. The dates don't correspond to when the equipment was placed. They're earlier, sometimes by decades. He showed me the pattern. The caches formed a rough spiral, but not a neat one. It pulsed, contracted, and expanded in waves. And at the epicenter of the spiral, was marker 47. The dates form a sequence, Bill said. I think they're not marking when the equipment was placed. They're marking when soldiers went missing. Every cache corresponds to a disappearance. How many? I've counted 217 so far. Going back to 19 so far, going back to 1917. Jesus. Yeah. We parked at the closest trailhead and hiked in. Bill moved with the confidence of someone who'd done this route many times, despite his claims of never going deep into the closed section. We passed markers 12, 19, 26, each one standing sentinel over a forest that felt progressively more wrong the deeper we went. At marker 33, the one that had been missing, we found something new. The post had been replaced, but not by Park Service equipment. This was older, made of different metal with dates stamped along its length like growth rings. 1945, 1967, 197, 2003, 2019. It repairs itself, Bill whispered, or something repairs it. Maintaining the boundary, we pressed on. The temperature dropped, the light shifted, and the sounds. God, the sounds! That radio chatter was constant now. A background static of lost voices calling for help across decades. Marker 47 stood in a small clearing. Unlike the others, this one was surrounded by equipment. Dozens of pieces, maybe hundreds, helmets from different eras. Rifles ranging from World War I, bolt actions to modern M4s. Dog tags strung like wind chimes from tree branches, clinking in a breeze I couldn't feel. And 50 yards southeast, exactly as Rodriguez had said, we found the hatch. It was built into a rocky outcrop, covered with moss and decades of growth, but still visible if you knew where to look. The metal was pitted with age, but intact. No rust. Whatever it was made of didn't corrode. This is it, Bill said. This is where they went down. The documents are just inside the shaft, I said. We don't have to go all the way down. We don't have to open the door. Bill pulled out a flashlight. Quick in, quick out. We grab whatever's there and we leave. Agreed. I nodded. He pulled the hatch open. It moved smoothly despite its age, like it had been oiled recently. Inside was darkness and a metal ladder descending into the earth. Bill went first. I followed, trying not to think about Morrison and his team doing this exact same thing 35 years ago. The shaft went down maybe 30 feet. At the bottom was a small chamber carved from solid rock. And there, propped against the wall, was a waterproof case covered in warnings written in what looked like dried blood. Turned back. Don't look at them. It sees through their eyes. The pattern is a countdown. Bill opened the case. Inside were documents, journal entries, maps, photographs, all created by someone named Dr. Sarah Chen. No relation to the soldier Chen, I assumed. Dated between 1945 and 1952. The first page made my blood run cold. Project Hourglass. Final report. Classification above top secret. We made a terrible mistake. The artifact we recovered from the German facility in Bavaria was not a weapon as we believed. It is a trap. A collection mechanism created by something that understands time in ways we cannot comprehend. Every soldier we've lost wasn't killed. They were stored, preserved in a state of quantum temporal superposition, existing in all moments since their disappearance simultaneously. And with each new disappearance, the artifact grows stronger. I believe it is counting down to something. The pattern of disappearances isn't random, it's a sequence, a mathematical progression leading to a specific moment when the collection will be complete. God forgive us. We buried it instead of destroying it. We thought we could contain it, study it, potentially use it. But you cannot contain something that exists outside of linear time. You can only delay the inevitable. If you're reading this, you need to... The entry ended abruptly, the rest of the page torn away. Bill and I looked at each other in the dim light of his flashlight. Then we heard it. A sound from deeper in the shaft, past where we stood, from beyond the door that Morrison and his team had opened. It sounded like breathing, like thousands of people breathing in perfect synchronization, and beneath that, a voice. Not radioactive this time, a real voice speaking in a language I didn't recognize but somehow understood. Thank you for opening the hatch. The collection has waited so long for more. The ladder above us began to retract, pulling back up through the shaft. We were trapped. Panic is a strange thing. In combat situations, I'd learned to suppress it, to think clearly even when everything was going to hell. But this was different. This wasn't enemy fire or tactical problems. This was reality itself breaking down around us. Bill grabbed my arm. The equipment, he hissed. Drop everything metal now. I didn't understand, but I obeyed. My flashlight, my radio, the multi-tool on my belt, all of it went on the floor. Bill did the same, moving with frantic urgency. The ladder finished retracting with a hollow clang that echoed down the shaft. We were 30 feet underground with no way up, no way out, except through whatever lay beyond that door Morrison's team had opened. It's attracted to modern metal, Bill whispered. Something about electromagnetic signatures. The older the metal, the less it notices. That's why the equipment caches are all vintage gear. It can't see them the same way. How do you know this? The ranger who came back wrong. Before he killed himself, he wrote things. Warnings. Most of it was incomprehensible, but some of it. Bill pulled out a small notebook from his inner pocket. Some of it made sense. He showed me pages filled with frantic handwriting, diagrams, equations that looked like they were trying to map impossible geometry. Modern electronics called to it. Bill read aloud. Steel forged after 1950, rings in frequencies it can hear. It reaches through the metal, uses it to see our world, to touch our time. Only old iron stays silent. Only old iron is safe. The breathing sound grew louder, and now I could hear footsteps. Multiple sets, all moving in perfect unison, approaching from deeper in the chamber. Bill grabbed the waterproof case. We go deeper. There's supposed to be a secondary shaft, a maintenance tunnel the Germans built. If Chen's documents are complete, it should be the door at the end of the chamber opened. I can't properly describe what I saw. Human language isn't built for it. The door didn't swing open like normal doors. It unfolded like reality itself was peeling back to reveal something that existed underneath. Something that had always been there, but hidden. Beyond the door was a room, but the room was wrong. Its dimensions didn't work. Walls met at angles that shouldn't be possible. The ceiling was simultaneously too high and too low, and the space inside seemed to expand the longer I looked at it, growing deeper and wider, containing more space than should fit inside the earth. And they were there. The displaced, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Soldiers from every American war, all standing in perfect formation, all frozen in expressions of horror and confusion. World War I doughboys with their wrapped leggings. World War II paratroopers. Korean War infantrymen. Vietnam tunnel rats. Gulf War Marines. Soldiers from conflicts I didn't even recognize, wearing uniforms that might have been from wars that hadn't happened yet. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing. But they were aware. I could feel their consciousness pressing against mine. Thousands of trapped minds screaming silently for help they knew would never come. Don't look at their eyes. Bill grabbed my shoulder, forcing me to turn away. Chen's notes said that's how it sees you, through their eyes. If you make eye contact, it can map your timeline, trace you back through every moment of your existence. But I'd already looked. For just a second, I'd met the gaze of a soldier in the front row, a young man in Civil War blue, his face locked in an expression of dawning comprehension and absolute terror. And in that instant, I felt something vast and ancient turn its attention toward me. It wasn't malevolent that would have been easier to process. It was curious, the way a collector might examine a new specimen, analyzing its qualities, deciding where to place it in the collection. I felt it moving through my memories, touching each moment of my life, like flipping through a photo album. My childhood, my military service, my divorce, every second I'd ever existed, suddenly visible to something that perceived time the way we perceived space. Michael. Bill's voice snapped me back. Stay with me. Don't let it pull you in. He was dragging me sideways away from the door toward a dark opening in the chamber wall I hadn't noticed before. The maintenance tunnel. We stumbled into it. Bill half carrying me as I struggled to remember how to move my own legs. Behind us, the breathing sound changed. It became anticipatory, hungry. The soldiers in the room began to move, not naturally. They moved in that synchronized way I'd seen Morrison and the others move, like puppets guided by the same hand, all of them turning toward us simultaneously, all of them taking a single step forward in perfect unison. Run. Bill gasped. The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for us to move single file. Old wooden supports held up the ceiling, timber that had to be from the 1940s, probably installed when this whole complex was built. We ran through absolute darkness, hands on the walls, moving by touch alone. Behind us, the sound of synchronized footsteps echoed. They weren't hurrying, they didn't need to. Time worked differently down here. They could afford to be patient. Bill's hand found mine in the darkness. Keep moving. The tunnel should connect to another shaft about 200 wide ahead. It was designed as an emergency exit, but it's been sealed for his words cut off as the tunnel suddenly opened into another chamber. This one was smaller, more clearly man-made. The walls were concrete, poured decades ago and now cracked with ash age, and there were markings everywhere. Warnings painted in at least 6 different languages, all saying variations of the same thing. Do not open the vault. Curbined Med artifact. Collection must remain sealed. The hourglass is counting down. In the center of the chamber stood a massive steel door, not the impossible door that had led to the collection room. This was real physical Soviet-era engineering, covered in warning symbols and locked with mechanisms that looked like they'd been designed to never be opened again. Dr. Chen's documents had more pages. Bill pulled them out, reading frantically by the dim light bleeding in from somewhere I couldn't identify. Listen to this, he said, his voice shaking. The artifact at the center is not a weapon. It is a timer, a countdown mechanism created by something that views the universe in 4 dimensions, the way we view a flat map. Every soldier it collects is a grain of sand falling through the hourglass. When enough time has been collected, when enough human moments have been stored and compressed and concentrated, the countdown will complete, and whatever is waiting on the other side will be able to enter our timeline. What does that mean? It means this whole thing, the disappearances, the collection, everything is preparation. Something is using human consciousness, human experience of linear time, to build a bridge into our reality. Every soldier it takes adds to that bridge. And Chen calculated. Bill's hands trembled as he read. She calculated that the countdown would complete sometime in late 2024. Right about now. The synchronized footsteps were getting closer. I could see shapes moving in the tunnel behind us. Shadows that wore different uniforms from different eras all moving with that same puppet-like coordination. There's supposed to be a way to stop it, Bill said, scanning the documents frantically. Chen mentioned a failsafe. The Germans who first found the artifact. They built something. A resonance disruptor. If we can activate it, it should break the collection's coherence, scatter the soldiers back to their proper times. Where is it? Behind that door. Bill pointed to the massive steel barrier. At the artifact itself, the shapes were almost upon us now. I could see Morrison in the lead, his face that same mask of horror I'd seen before. Behind him, dozens more. All of them reaching toward us with hands that didn't quite move like human hands should. "We can't open that door," I said. "If Chen and the Germans sealed it, if they put all these warnings, we don't have a choice." Bill pulled a small device from his pack. It looked like a modified radio, crude but functional. Chen unleft this. It's keyed to a frequency that should unlock the door, but once we open it, we'll have about 60 seconds to reach the artifact and activate the disruptor before the collection itself reaches through. The soldiers were 10 feet away now. Morrison's mouth opened, and that voice from before came out. The ancient, inhuman voice that somehow spoke every language at once. "You cannot stop the completion. The grains have fallen. The bridge is nearly built. Soon the collector will cross into your linear time and your species will become part of the eternal collection. You should feel honored. Human consciousness is particularly beautiful when preserved." Bill pressed the device's activation button. The massive steel door shuddered. Locks that hadn't moved in decades ground open. Warning klaxons that shouldn't have power began wailing, and the door slowly, inexorably began to swing inward. Beyond it was light, not normal light. This was wrong, sickeningly wrong. Light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, that cast shadows in directions that violated basic geometry. And in the center of that light, suspended in a chamber that was both enormous and impossibly small, I saw it. The artifact. It looked like an hourglass. That was the closest description my brain could process. But it was made of something that wasn't glass or metal, or any material I recognized. It seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. Its surface covered in patterns that hurt to look at, mathematical progressions that implied geometries human minds weren't designed to comprehend. And inside it, instead of sand, were moments. I could see them. Fragments of human experience compressed and crystallized. A soldier's last thought before a bullet hit. A moment of fear frozen in time. Seconds of life extracted and stored, glowing softly as they fell slowly from the upper chamber to the lower. The lower chamber was nearly full. The disruptor. Bill shoved me forward. The panel on the left. Chen's notes say you have to input a specific harmonic sequence. I'll hold them off. Bill, you can't. I know. His voice was calm, accepting. I've known for years this was how it would end. Every ranger who serves here long enough realizes the same thing. We're not guards. We're eventual sacrifices. The collection always takes its due. He pulled out an old service pistol. .45 caliber World War II era. Saved from the artifact's awareness. "Go!" he shouted as the displaced soldiers flooded into the chamber. I ran toward the artifact, toward that impossible light. Behind me, I heard gunfire. Bill was shooting, not at the soldiers, but at the supports, at the concrete, trying to bring the ceiling down and block their advance. The panel Chen had mentioned was there, covered in symbols that looked like mathematical equations translated into physical form. And next to it, taped to the wall, was a handwritten note in Chen's distinctive script. "If you've made it this far, you understand the stakes. The sequence is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 2, 1, 34. The Fibonacci progression, the pattern underlying all natural growth and decay. Input it exactly. You'll have one chance. And know that stopping the countdown means sacrificing everyone already in the collection. They cannot be saved. They can only be released into non-existence." My hands shook as I began inputting the sequence. Each number corresponded to a symbol on the panel. Each press made the artifact hum with a tone that I felt in my bones. Behind me, Bill's gun clicked empty. I heard him shout one last defiance, then silence. I pressed the final symbol. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the artifact began to vibrate. The light intensified until it was painful to look at in the moments stored inside. All those crystallized seconds of human consciousness began to crack. The displaced soldiers screamed. All of them, simultaneously a chorus of hundreds of voices finally able to express the agony they'd been trapped in for decades. The artifact shattered. Not explosively. It came apart like a soap bubble, breaking into fragments that evaporated before they could hit the ground. And as it broke, I saw the soldiers begin to fade. Morrison, Chen, Rodriguez, the World War I doughboys, the Vietnam vets, all of them becoming translucent, becoming transparent, becoming memory. Morrison caught my eye one last time. His expression had changed. The horror was gone, replaced by something like peace, like gratitude. "Thank you," his voice echoed as he disappeared. "Thank you for ending it." Then they were all gone. The light vanished. The impossible geometry collapsed back into normal three-dimensional space, and I was standing in an old concrete chamber with a pile of strange metallic debris where the artifact had been. Bill lay 20 feet away, surrounded by the bodies of displaced soldiers that were now just ancient bones and rotted uniforms. He was still breathing, but barely. I crawled to him. "Hold on, I'll get you out." He smiled weakly. I saw them go. Saw them finally get released. "That's enough, Bill. Listen." He grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "The collection is broken. The countdown stopped. But whatever was waiting on the other side, whatever the collector was, it's still out there, still aware of us. And someday it will try again. How do we stop it? You can't. But you can warn people. Document everything. Make sure the next generation knows what's buried in places like this. Make sure they understand that some discoveries should stay buried." His grip loosened. His breathing slowed. "Bill, don't. It's okay," he whispered. "I get to stop carrying this now. I get to rest." Then he was gone. I sat there in the darkness for a long time, holding the hand of a man who'd become my friend in just a few short weeks. Eventually, I found my way back to the surface. The ladder had returned to its normal position once the artifact broke. The closed section felt different now, lighter, less oppressive. But I knew Bill was right. This wasn't over. I gathered all of Chen's documents. I photographed everything. And over the next few days I compiled a complete record of what had happened, what the closed section really contained, what the government had been hiding for nearly 80 years. The official report listed Bill Cortez as killed in a hiking accident. The closed section remained closed, the markers still in place. Nothing changed on the surface, but I changed. I couldn't keep working as a ranger. Couldn't keep pretending to protect people from ordinary dangers when I knew what was really out there. I resigned within a month. Now I document. I investigate. I track down other sites like the closed section, places where reality is thinner, where things from outside can reach through. And I try to warn people, even though most won't believe me. Because here's what I learned in that underground chamber. We think we're alone in the universe. We think reality follows rules we understand. We think time flows in one direction and can't be manipulated. We're wrong about all of it. There are things older than our species, older than our planet, that exist in dimensions we can barely conceive, and some of them collect. They gather consciousness the way we might collect butterflies, preserving moments of awareness for purposes we can't fathom. The artifact in Northern California was just one collection site. Chen's documents referenced others, locations around the world where soldiers go missing at statistically impossible rates, where time behaves strangely, where the boundary between our linear reality and something vaster grows thin. Most of them are still active. The government knows. They've always known. But they can't stop it any more than they can stop gravity or entropy. All they can do is manage it, contain it, sacrifice a few soldiers every generation to keep the rest of us ignorant. And the countdown, the one that was building toward late 2024, we stopped one artifact, but Chen's calculations suggested there were at least 17 others worldwide, all counting down in synchronization, all building bridges for something to cross into our timeline. I don't know if we stopped the countdown or just delayed it. I don't know if the collector is still out there, still waiting, still patient. But I know this. The displaced soldiers are free now. The ones in Northern California, at least. They've been released from their temporal prison, scattered back into the non-existence they were denied for so long, and sometimes on quiet nights, I think I can hear Morrison's voice on the wind thanking me one more time. The closed section is still there. The markers still stand. And the government still keeps people away, citing old lies about munitions contamination. But if you ever find yourself hiking in Northern California, and you see a small metal post painted in an odd grayish-green color, turn back. Don't ask questions. Don't investigate. Just turn back and leave. Because even though we broke the artifact, even though we freed the collection, the space itself is still damaged, still thin, still a place where reality doesn't quite work the way it should, and whatever was using that space to build a bridge into our world, it remembers it's patient, and someday it will try again. That was 3 years ago. 3 years since I destroyed the artifact. 3 years since Bill died in that underground chamber. 3 years since I walked away from the Ranger Service and started hunting for answers the government doesn't want found. I'm telling you this now because I don't have much time left. Not in the way you think. I'm not dying. Not exactly. But I'm becoming something else. Something the collection marked when I looked into that Civil War soldier's eyes. Let me explain what happened after I left Northern California. I spent the first 6 months trying to return to normal life. I moved to Portland, got a job at a sporting goods store, tried to convince myself that what I'd experienced was over. Done. The artifact was destroyed. The soldiers were free, and I could move on. But the dreams started almost immediately. Not normal dreams. These were memories that weren't mine. I'd close my eyes and see battles I'd never fought. Trenches in France, 1918. Jungles in Vietnam, 1969. Desert sandstorms in Iraq, 1991. I was experiencing the stored moments of soldiers who'd been in the collection. Fragments of their consciousness somehow transferred to me when the artifact shattered. At first, it was just at night. Then it started happening during the day. I'd be stocking shelves and suddenly I wasn't Jonathan Reeves anymore. I was Private James Patterson, crouching in a foxhole during the Battle of the Bulge, feeling the cold that killed him seeping into my bones. The episodes lasted only seconds at first, then minutes, then hours. I went to doctors, psychiatrists. They diagnosed PTSD, prescribed medications that did nothing. How could they? They didn't understand that I wasn't having flashbacks to my own trauma. I was experiencing the death moments of hundreds of soldiers crystallized and preserved, and now somehow living inside my mind. That's when I started finding the others. Through veteran support forums, through obscure military history websites, I discovered I wasn't alone. There were at least 30 people worldwide experiencing the same thing. All of them had been near sites where soldiers disappeared at impossible rates. All of them had somehow been exposed to whatever force was collecting human consciousness. We called ourselves the Marked, and we started comparing notes. A woman named Sarah Kim in South Korea. She'd been hiking near the DMZ and stumbled across an old bunker. Inside, she found what she described as a room full of frozen moments. When she touched one, she started experiencing memories of soldiers from the Korean War. A man named Klaus Weber in Germany. He'd been exploring abandoned Nazi facilities in Bavaria and found a chamber that matched Chen's descriptions exactly. Another collection site. He'd activated something, broken something, and now he couldn't stop seeing through the eyes of Wehrmacht soldiers who disappeared in 1944. 17 sites total, just like Chen had calculated. All of them counting down, all of them building bridges for something to cross. And here's what terrified us. The countdown was still active. Breaking one artifact hadn't stopped it. It had only freed the soldiers trapped at that specific site. The other 16 were still collecting, still storing moments, still preparing for whatever the collector had planned. I became obsessed with mapping them. The MART shared information, pulled resources, created a database of disappearances going back centuries. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Small clusters of soldiers vanishing in specific geographical areas. Always near old military installations. Always in places with strange geological features, unusual mineral deposits. electromagnetic anomalies, spots where the Earth's magnetic field fluctuated. The collector wasn't randomly choosing sites. It was selecting locations where the boundary between dimensions was naturally thinner. Places where reality was already damaged, already susceptible to manipulation. One site kept appearing in our data more than any other: Pine Gap, Australia. It's officially a satellite tracking station run jointly by the US and Australian governments. But the disappearance rate around Pine Gap was astronomical. Since 1970, over 300 soldiers and contractors had gone missing in the surrounding desert. The official explanations range from heat exhaustion to owl to equipment failures. But we knew better. I managed to get inside Pine Gap 6 months ago. Don't ask me how. Let's just say the marked includes some people with highly clearances who stopped caring about official channels. The facility goes deep, much deeper than the satellite tracking equipment requires. I made it down to level 8 before security caught me. But I saw enough. They have an artifact there, bigger than the one in California, more sophisticated. And unlike the California site, which was buried and forgotten, Pine Gap is actively managed. Scientists monitor it. Military personnel guard it. They're not trying to destroy it. They're studying it, learning from it. And unless I'm very wrong, they're trying to communicate with whatever's on the other side. The documents I managed to photograph before they dragged me out were classified above top secret. Project Hourglass wasn't abandoned after Chen's warnings. It was expanded, internationalized, brought under the control of a coalition that includes the US, Russia, China, and several other nations. They call it the Temporal Collection Initiative. Now, and their goal isn't to stop the countdown. It's to control it, to harness whatever the collector is building and use it as a weapon. Imagine being able to remove enemy soldiers from time itself, not kill them. That leaves bodies, creates martyrs, generates backlash. But to simply erase them from the timeline, store them away where they experience every moment of their existence simultaneously in eternal frozen awareness. It would be the perfect weapon, and according to the documents, they're close to achieving it. The countdown is scheduled to complete on December 31st, 2025, less than a year from when I'm recording this. When it does, the collector will cross over. The bridge built from thousands of stolen moments will become permanent, and whatever exists on the other side, whatever views our four-dimensional space-time the way we view a photograph, will be able to reach into our reality at will. The people running the initiative think they can control it. They think they can negotiate with it, weaponize it, use it to ensure their nation's dominance for generations to come. They're wrong. I know because of what's been happening to me. The episodes of experiencing other soldiers' memories have been getting worse, more frequent, more intense, and I've started to understand what those moments contain. They're not just memories, they're warnings. Every soldier in the collection is trying to communicate the same message. The collector doesn't distinguish between willing and unwilling subjects. It doesn't care about nationality or ideology or political systems. It collects consciousness because that's what it does. That's what it is. And once the bridge is complete, once it can cross fully into our dimension, it won't just collect soldiers. It will collect everyone. Every human consciousness will be just another moment to crystallize and store. Another grain of sand falling through an hourglass that never empties because time itself will become its prison. I've tried to warn people, published articles under pseudonyms, posted to conspiracy forums, even tried to contact mainstream journalists. Nobody believes me. How could they? It sounds insane. But the marked believe me. We're planning something, an operation for December. We're going to hit all 17 sites simultaneously. Not to study them or harness them, but to destroy them all at once. Break the pattern, shatter the countdown before it can complete. It's probably suicide. The sites are heavily guarded. Most of us won't survive. But we don't have a choice. Because here's the thing nobody else understands. We're already partially collected. Those of us who've been exposed, who carry the memories of displaced soldiers, we exist in both states simultaneously. Now part of us is still in normal time, moving forward moment by moment. But part of us is already frozen, already crystallized, already experiencing every second of our lives at once. I can feel it happening more each day. This morning I was making coffee and suddenly I was simultaneously 5 years old, opening Christmas presents, and 32, standing in that underground chamber, and some future version of myself I haven't reached yet, somewhere dark and cold, experiencing my final moments over and over. Time is becoming unstable around me, around all the marked. We're becoming like the displaced soldiers existing in multiple moments simultaneously. Our consciousness spreading across our personal timelines like ink and water. The doctors can't see it. Medical scans show nothing wrong. But I know I can feel myself becoming a bridge, becoming a connection point between normal reality and whatever exists beyond. And I can feel the collector's attention focusing on me. It knows I destroyed one of its artifacts. It knows I'm planning to destroy the others. And it's curious about me. The same way I might be curious about an interesting specimen. Sometimes in the space between seconds, I see it. Not clearly. Human perception isn't designed for it. But I catch glimpses. Something vast and intricate, built from mathematics and consciousness, existing in dimensions my eyes can't quite focus on. It looks at me the way an entomologist might examine a particularly interesting insect. It's not evil. That's what's so disturbing. It's not malicious or cruel. It's just doing what it does. Collecting, preserving, building structures from stolen moments of awareness. To it. We're not people. We're components building blocks for something greater than individual consciousness. And from its perspective, that's not wrong. It's just a different way of organizing reality. But I'm still human enough to fight it. We all are. December 31st. That's the day. 17 teams, 17 sites, all hitting simultaneously. We have the schematics from Chen's documents. We know how to break the artifacts. And we know it will probably kill us. But maybe if we can shatter all 17 at once, we can disrupt the pattern enough to prevent the collector from crossing over. Maybe we can save humanity from becoming just another collection, another set of crystallized moments stored in an impossible hourglass. I'm recording this because I need someone to know what happened, what's happening, what's about to happen. If we succeed, you'll probably never hear about it. The governments involved will cover it up. They'll dismiss us as terrorists, or extremists, or mentally ill. And maybe we are. Maybe this whole thing is an elaborate delusion. And I really am just suffering from PTSD. But I don't think so. I think the dreams are real, the glimpses are real, the collector is real, and the countdown is real. And in less than a year, one way or another, this will be over. I wish I could end this with something hopeful, some reassurance that everything will be okay. But I've spent 3 years living with the truth, and hope is a luxury I can no longer afford. All I can offer is a warning. If you start experiencing memories that aren't yours, if you start seeing moments of your life happening simultaneously instead of sequentially, get away from military installations. Get away from anywhere soldiers have disappeared in unusual numbers, because it means you've been marked, noticed, selected, and once the collector notices you, it never looks away. I'm in Arizona now preparing for the Pine Gap operation. My team is 12 people, all marked, all experiencing the same temporal instability I am. We joke that we're the most dysfunctional special operations unit in history, constantly flickering between past, present, and future, barely able to maintain linear consciousness long enough to plan the raid. But we're all with God. Sarah Kim is leading the team at the DMZ. Klaus Weber is hitting the Bavarian site. The others are scattered across the globe, all converging on their targets for synchronized strikes at midnight UTC on December 31st. We probably won't all make it. Hell, we probably won't even get close to the artifacts before we're killed. But we have to try, because the alternative is too terrible to accept. I started experiencing something new yesterday. A memory that hasn't happened yet. Me standing in front of the Pine Gap artifact, inputting the Fibonacci sequence on its control panel. The artifact shattering, light and sound collapsing into impossible geometries. And then, nothing. The memory ends there. I don't know if that means I die, or if that means I succeed and return to normal time, or if it means something else entirely. But I see it clearly. It's already happened from a certain perspective. It's happening right now from another perspective, and it will happen assuming time still works that way, when December arrives. The last thing I want to say is this. If you're reading this after December 31st, 2025, and you're still experiencing linear time, still moving forward moment by moment without fracturing into simultaneous existence, we succeeded. We broke the artifacts, stopped the countdown, prevented the collector from crossing over. You'll never know our names. The governments will make sure of that. But 17 teams of marked individuals gave everything to save a world that doesn't even know it needed saving. And if you're reading this and time has become unstable, if you're experiencing moments out of sequence, if the boundaries between past, present, and future have dissolved, I'm sorry, we failed and the collection has begun. There's something else I need to tell you. Something I discovered just last week that changes everything. I was going through Chen's documents again, reading passages I'd missed before, when I found a final addendum written in her handwriting, but dated 1952, decades after she supposedly stopped working on Project Hourglass. It read, "I understand now. The collector isn't building a bridge to cross into our dimension. It's building a bridge to cross out. Earth is already inside the collection, has been since 1945, possibly earlier. What we think of as normal time, as linear causality, is just another crystallized moment being experienced eternally from the collector's perspective. We're not trying to prevent it from entering our world. We're trying to escape the fact that we're already inside its hourglass, watching the last grains of sand fall. I've read that passage 100 times, trying to find another interpretation, trying to convince myself Chen was wrong or crazy or speculating without evidence. But it explains everything. The temporal anomalies, the way the marked experience multiple moments simultaneously, the feeling that time is thickening around us, becoming dense and resistant. We're not in danger of being collected. We already are collected. Every moment of human history, from the first conscious thought to whatever comes last, is just sand that's already fallen. We're experiencing it sequentially because that's how human consciousness works. But from outside, from the collector's perspective, it's all already happened. It's all preserved. It's all stored. And the countdown, the artifacts, the supposed bridge being built, those aren't preparation for an invasion. They're the mechanisms by which we become aware of our own collection. The moment when the specimen realizes it's in a jar. December 31st isn't when the collector crosses over. It's when we fully understand that it's already here, that it's always been here, that there is no outside to escape to, because everything, all of space-time, all of reality is inside the hourglass. I don't know what happens when we become fully aware of this. Chen's notes don't say. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe we just keep experiencing our sequential moments, but with the terrible knowledge that they're all already finished, already preserved, already part of something we can never escape. Or maybe awareness itself is what breaks the illusion. Maybe understanding that we're collected is what causes us to fracture into simultaneous existence, experiencing every moment of our lives at once because that's what we've always been doing. We just didn't know it yet. I'm going to Pine Gap anyway. Going to input the sequence. Going to break the artifact. Not because I think it will save us. I don't think we can be saved from something we're already inside of. But because maybe, just maybe, breaking the mechanisms of awareness will let us go back to the comfortable illusion of linear time. Let us forget what we are. Let us be unconscious specimens again, experiencing our preserved moments sequentially, unaware that every instant of our existence is frozen in an eternal now. That's all I can hope for anymore. Not escape, just ignorance, just the mercy of not knowing. If you're reading this and you still experience time normally, if you still believe you're moving forward moment by moment into an uncertain future, don't look too closely at the pattern. Don't study the disappearances. Don't investigate the sites, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you understand that every moment is simultaneous, that past and future are just different perspectives on a frozen eternal present, You can never go back to the comfort of believing in causality, and that awareness itself might be the cruelest trap of all. I'm signing off now. 3 months until December 31st. 3 months until I stand in front of that artifact and try to smash the window through which I've seen too much. Michael Reeves, Ranger, Northern California, marked by the Collector, trying desperately to forget what I've learned. If this recording reaches you, if you're hearing my voice, you're probably wondering if I succeeded, if we stopped the countdown, if we saved the world. The truth is simpler and more terrible than that. We were never in a position to save anything. We were never free to begin with. We're specimens, components, grains of sand in the hourglass. It's not counting down to some future event. It's showing us what's already happened, has always happened, will always happen from a certain perspective. The one perspective that matters, the Collector's perspective. And it's looking at you right now, through my words, through your moment of reading them, adding your awareness to its collection. Welcome to the hourglass. You've always been here. You'll always be here. And somewhere in dimensions you can't perceive, something vast and mathematical is appreciating the beauty of your crystallized consciousness. Just like it's appreciating mine, just like it's appreciating everyone's.